and welcome to Ideas with Impact podcast. Today on the show, I am joined by the brilliant and enigmatic Robert, and he is a true modern day Renaissance man whose work bridges ancient wisdoms and modern consciousness, from astrology and the Ching to cosmic mythology and the mystery of the stars. Robert brings a profound understanding of our connection to the universe. So welcome, Robert, to the show. How are you today?
Yeah, so good. So good to be here with you and diving into this amazing subject of the universe.
Yes, there's so much that I think people want to know more. And it's so amazing to have you to basically guide and have that kind of explanation that people, if they're interested, to look forward. So what I would love to ask you is, you've been called a modern day Renaissance man, and how did your path evolve into such a multi-dimensional journey?
Wow. Well, that's a great thing to be honored to be called part of the Renaissance, of this, in a way, bringing back the sort of ancient wisdom, but then in a new way. We get to sort of script this new painting. This new Da Vinci is our current time. And it's such an honor for us to be able to paint that and weave the ancient past with the sort of the quantum future. And so we're really at this beautiful precipice of this. And in terms of my journey, I mean, I think that I always felt from a very young age, music and colors and art made sense to me more than speaking, writing, or anything else. And so when I was younger, I could actually draw all of the iconographies of the musical notes. And so I learned through drawing like Chinese sort of pictographs of all of the letters and musical letters. And so symbols and signs and the subtle realms was where what I seemed to understand. Even if I didn't sort of contextually understand it on an intellectual level, I had a feeling of its resonance. And so it was kind of strange because as I grew up, I always felt like a bit of an alien in some way because I was seeing sort of other things than what was there. And as you grow up, when it comes to things like writing and reading, I would be reading words that aren't there. And I would be seeing colors that aren't there. And I had no understanding of why. It was like all dimensions was an ocean. And so it's very hard to separate individual fractals, which is what school is very much about you learn this subject, you learn that. Whereas for me, I could just see it as one great big ocean. And I'm like, well, how do you separate the fish in this ocean? And so it took a while to figure that out. And it really wasn't until my sort of spiritual awakening that I felt like this feels like home now. I feel like I'm perceiving the universe how I should have been in my life. And so when you see it as this sort of grand tapestry, as this one ocean, that everything is in there, then really it's very easy to start to see patterns and synchronicities and weave different traditions together. And then as I evolved in my latest work with, when I moved into astrology and all of the geometry and things like that, then that's where things like the number and shapes, then you can see correspondences, and then it just becomes these cosmic patterns. And then once you have a few of these cosmic patterns in your toolbox, then it's like you take out a template and you put it over something else and it fits, and you're like, wow, so that links to that and that links to that. And so the more that you weave and do this work, the easier it is to see the synchronicities into it. And then that's what I love to share. Ultimately, all of that technical part, I love to share it through the heart of story.
It's like because everything is so connected.
Yeah,
everything.
Because story is our greatest teacher. And the ancestors spoke in stories, they spoke in songs and nursery rhymes and fairy tales, and that's how we learn as children. And so that's what we would do, around the campfires, looking up at the stars, sharing the stories to gift the moral virtues, and also like what doesn't go right if you choose the wrong thing. And that's where you have the Greek mythologies and tragedies. And so that's why you can move into this work with a left brain, and you've got all the degrees and all the precise parts. But truly, what I always say is that people don't learn astrology to learn astrology. They learn astrology to find out truly about themselves. And so when you can blend the right brain of the storytelling and weave all the technical things in, then it works for both sides of the brain, and then you can move into the heart. And so this is the sort of the weaving magic that this is what I share as a pathway.
Mm-hmm. When did you discover that? At what age?
Well, I had my spiritual awakening at 33 years old, which was kind of fairly symbolic.
Yes.
And that was pretty abrupt. That was sort of, I went from no sort of any background, or nobody in my family was into anything spiritual. I was just a normal guy doing a normal job. And then it just one day, I went to a yoga class for the first time ever. And I wasn't even sure why I was going to this yoga class. I was thinking, well, what's yoga? It's just stretching and stuff. I had no connection to it at all. And then when I went, then at the end, it was this meditation to say, close your eyes. And I remember thinking, why would you close your eyes in the middle of the day? Like, that's what old people do. Like, why would I'm not tired. And so it was this weird thing. And as soon as I closed my eyes, that's when I entered this inner universe, and I could see the stars, I could see the planets, and I didn't realize I completely left my body, and I'm there floating around in space. And it was only when the teacher said, okay, now come back into the space. And I'm like, whoa, I have been so far out. And so then I came back, and I could see which I didn't know at the time, but I could see everybody's chakras. Oh, wow. I could see these golden orbs all down their body and above their head. And I'm thinking like I thought I was seeing stars, like when you look at something bright. And I sort of came back, and so that's really what kickstarted it off. And I just wanted to go back into that feeling time and time again, because it felt so good. So every day I was like, okay, shut my eyes, do the same process, and just see if I can do that again. And so then that was like this, it felt like I was being pulled from inside. Every time it was like an invitation. And then, of course, with that Piscean energy, it started to turn into like a waking dream time. So it was like having very visual shamanic type journeys, going, into space and going into the angelic realms, and then meeting galactic beings. And it was like a movie time. So I loved it. And every time I did it, I felt better and better and better. But by doing that, I was finding myself separating from that sort of 3D sort of lifestyle. I could no longer be the way I was. And so people noticed that I was changing and were wondering if I was okay, but I was like, I feel great. And they're like, are you sure? You don't really seem yourself. And so this split ends up happening between the life that you're leading and then the inner life. And then, so I'm really pleased that in the end, they now are woven, and it becomes your life. And so this is when you feel that sense of fulfillment, that you're doing what you're meant to be doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sometimes I find that we, humanity, just live in this kind of like a laneway, and you just keep on going. You're working the 9 to 5, you come home, you make dinner, you watch TV, and then you repeat the same thing over and over again. And we spoke a little bit earlier, and be honest with you, this is what happened to me before my big spiritual awakening about 8 years ago. And I'm not going to get into details, but I was like this, have kids, they went to school, came back home, and it was constantly like the same thing. And I knew deep inside that there was something missing, something was happening. And And yeah, I'm very glad that this happened to me too. And when I went through my own meditation process, I saw these golden letters, and I couldn't understand what that was. But later on, I found out it was more like, you know, when you have those tablets, and there was like really golden letters of some sort of scripts. I still don't know what it means, but it was quite interesting to actually see that. It's profound. So I'm just continuous. So well, keep on going and keep on developing and keep on learning. So and yeah, I'm so
Yeah.
happy to have you on to learn a little bit more about this.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, actually, there is a thing that is called, they are called fire letters.
Okay.
And that's the Hebrew language was known as fire letters. And so it was said that as you were to speak the words, that the letters would actually almost be in, you know, holographically like little flames. And so whenever I see things like golden scripts and these type of things, then yeah, it's like this sort of a remembrance of these ancient languages. And when you're saying about this sort of golden light, then that's my immediate thought is about the ancient Hebrew fire letters.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. What initially drew you to astrology, and can you recall the first moments you felt this truth in your own life?
Yeah, I mean, I've always loved the stars. It's not even so much the planets, but more the stars for me. And I remember, you know, when I was younger, there was sort of these oracles that you would read in the back of the paper, and I knew which star sign I was, and I would read this part, and it was so true every time I read it. This, you know, Pisces this week, and I thought, how do they know how I'm feeling when they've never met me? And so I always knew that there was something profound to do with the zodiac and the stars, but of course, in my life, I sort of dismissed it, and I wasn't really connected to it. And then through my sort of spiritual journey, I knew a bit about astrology, but it wasn't really a main thing for me until I started to create my own modality. And as I was creating my own modality, it's all about color and how color is connected. And I called it the astrology of color. And so it was this project I was working on. And as I was weaving that process through, then I started to really focus in on astrology about how the planets and how our date of birth can be this map for us. And that's really what I really dedicated myself to, diving into astrology, and not just what we know now, but all of the ancient history of astrology. So all of the Chinese ancient astrology, all of the Persian astrology, um, going into the tropical, the sidereal, constellational, and then I went into Egypt with the Dendera stone. And then that's really where it clicked for me, because speaking about degrees and, you know, retrogrades, and that's one side of astrology, and the houses and all of that, but that it doesn't really, that feels like it's like the weather report for me, where it wasn't deep enough. It wasn't like our purpose, like what is the map inside of us. And so when I started to learn about what they call the star lore, and lore being Lore, meaning the folklore of where we would share stories. Well, of course, this was like the greatest thing, because now we can understand the stars and the movements of the heavens, but through story. And so that for me was amazing to dive into. And that's when I started to find every single Greek myth, all of the Bible stories, every story ever told, every nursery rhyme, everything that every story we've ever had, I started to find that all of it is in the stars. And so this is where the passion for me came, to say, I want to share this. I want to tell people about their story in the stars, because for me, it was the soul print that I was waiting for. And yes, you can get very good readings with the degrees, and all of these things in your natal chart. But for me, again, that's kind of very left brain, and maybe it can even be quite practical, which is great. But in terms of spiritual fulfillment, I felt like there was a gap missing. And when you weave in stories, then all of a sudden all of the planets are moving as one, rather than say Mars is stationed there and that means this. It's like, well, Mars is there and Venus is there and Saturn is there, and their dynamics and how that works. So it's a more of a holistic approach to it, and it resonates more on a soul level. So yeah, that's really where for me it was like I found like the jackpot in that for me.
Is all astrology similar? So when we're talking about just Chinese astrology or the Western astrology, are they all similar in the way, or they're all differ? Or Vedic astrology?
Yeah, I mean, well, they're the same in terms of there's one pie, i.e. the sky, and they decided to cut it up into different pieces, different various degrees. They started it in different angles and different degrees. But yeah, some of them honed in on, say, like a specific star. So rather than a constellation, they would use one specific star from that constellation, or they would use a constellation that we know and they would break it into parts. So they would focus on those three parts. And so it's all the same sort of view. It just depends on the interpretation. And of course, a lot of this was based off of agricultural mysticism. So how we grow crops, when are the rain seasons, when are the droughts, when is there going to be time to harvest and abundance. And so it ties in with the earth seasons. So that's really what they used a lot of the stars for, as well as navigation, because obviously when we were pioneers going on ships and trying to find new land, we kind of take it for granted now, like, oh, we just take a flight to Egypt or something. But you know, these people were using boats, and they had the stars that were the central point that they could access to find their compass. So this is how, you know, it was so deeply part of everybody's culture, the stars, even to the point where obviously all of their temples and alignments are all connected to the star alignments. So it's just now that we've had this disconnection. Yeah. So it's just, yeah, I say it's just now that we've had a sort of a bit of a disconnection from the stars, and we speak a lot about planets and houses in the natal chart, but it feels like the stars have been left out of astrology. So when I started to see in the Dendera stone that they were looking at the 36 Decons of astrology, which is 10 degrees each, so there's 3 Decons within each zodiac sign, then all of a sudden you've got a much more nuanced way of looking at, say, your zodiac sign. So within, say, Aries, there's 3 different versions of Aries, and they're all so different. So if you're born in those first 10 degrees, the star story is so different to even the next 10 degrees. And so when we speak about Aries, then that's why it's a lot of hit and miss for people with astrology. They're like, well, that does sound like me, but not really. Or, oh, I don't really believe in that because that's not really that accurate. And so this now allows us to be really accurate, and not only accurate, but to say, this is the star story you're meant to live out in your life. And that then gives you the blueprint. It's like the instruction manual that you never got as a child, where your star story may be to go through many death and rebirths. Your star story, you may have a part where you have a really difficult choice to make, and then you will choose either path. And so when you know that these things are meant to happen in your life, then when they happen, you understand the story of, if I choose this path, if I choose this path, what happened in that story? What was the moral? What do I feel? And then you can make an informed decision, rather than, why is this happening to me? It's more like, okay, I know this is what I'm meant to do. And so there's just huge relief for people when they start to understand this.
Or what can I do to make a difference, or make a difference in my own life, right? To walk that path. Yeah.
Yeah. So I say that because there's this idea of, destiny and fate.
Right.
And so you could say that when you start your heroic journey, that you know that you're going to a destination, but how you get there is the free will. So we can say, I'm going to climb the mountain. Well, you can climb it any which way you want. That's all the free will you have. You can do it any which way. You can go around it, up it. You can fly. You can wherever you want, however you want to do it, you can do it. And some of those paths will be easy paths. Some of those paths will be very difficult paths. So the choice is yours, but the destination is the same. So this is where we get to co-create, we get to rewrite the narrative as we are journeying through it. And the more people that journey through it and rewrite their narrative, that then becomes a collective field where that story is now being rewritten into our collective consciousness. And so other people choose the same paths as what you have. And now if you find sort of the cheat codes, or if you find this instruction to go around this bit and save yourself all that suffering, it's like you're uploading it into the field, and then other people will naturally choose that path. A bit like the 100 monkey effect, like once it's happened once somewhere in the world,
right,
it seems to penetrate through, and other people choose the same path. And so that's why it's so beautiful. We all get to be part of the new narrative if we choose.
Yes, I choose the path. Yes. Can you walk us through the significance of is it Dendera stone, and what it reveals about our ancient relationship with the stars?
Yeah, beautiful question. Well, the Dendera stone unfortunately was removed, and it's on the ceiling, and it was removed, and then it's now in the Louvre in France. And there's a sort of a recreation of it there in the Dendera temple. And Dendera is interesting because you could say it's the heart chakra temple of Egypt. So when you look at the Nile, each of the different temples sort of represent the different chakra system. And so it was very much a heart-based wisdom. And if you think about the heart, it's like the central point where everything moves around, which is exactly like the stars, that we have our pole star and everything moves around. And so it was very unusual to see the constellations exactly how they would be on a ceiling. And in that they encode, and there's a lot of discrepancy to saying, oh, maybe it was a Greco-Roman structure that was fairly recent that was put there, but it actually doesn't matter, because what is on there is preserved the actual stories that are there. So whether you believe it was rebuilt by Greco-Roman people or Babylon before that, Babylonian calendar is very, very similar to the Dendera stone. And so it doesn't actually matter on that level, because if you know how to read the story, then they are actually telling you the truth of what is up there. So I would say it's perhaps one of the most precious gems we've got in astrology that has been so undervalued when it comes to the zodiac and the natal chart. And that's why I wrote the book, because when I moved into astrology, it was learning about, houses and the zodiac signs and, the planets. And that was the main focus. When I found the Dendera stone and I started to work with the 36 Deacons of astrology, then this is when it all it was like the next octave. So, of course, astrology is kind of like a layered approach. So you learn tropical astrology normally as your first entryway into it, with the houses and the planets. And I always see tropical as like the seasons of the year. So you have this idea of Aries, the new lamb, and that's your spring. And so all of the seasons work very well with tropical astrology. Then as you move deeper, you move into the precession of the equinox, meaning that we are actually going through this great year. So we have our normal year, and then we have this great year that we're also going through, and that's why we say the age of Aquarius or the age of Pisces. That is really profound because that is the one that moves. So we move 1 degree every 72 years. And so when that tropical calendar was put in place, we are now 2000 years on. Well, now we're about 24 degrees now in precession than we were when the calendar was at 0 degrees Aries. So sidereal allows you to be in tune with what is currently happening. And so that's that layer. And then the next layer, which is this layer that I'm really pursuing more so, is what some people call true sky, or I call constellational. Because how they decided to do it, they would take the wheel and they would split it into 12 even parts. And sidereal is that same wheel, but just now 24 degrees different and forever moving. In constellational, this now gives you various degrees for each zodiac sign. So Pisces is huge in the sky. It will take up, say, 40 degrees. And same with Virgo, that's huge. So constellational is the degrees of how big the sign is. And so in Scorpios, it's really tiny. It's only, say, 5 degrees, 10 degrees. So it's a much different way of working. But with that, you really are on the current pulse and the current alignments to the very constellations that you're going through. So I feel like that is the renaissance of astrology, is that we will eventually move into this constellational astrology, and of course then also with the 36 Decons in there.
Was there in the past 13 zodiac signs?
Well, in my book I explore that there's actually 14 zodiac signs. So when we think about, when astrologers were looking at the stars, then we've got to think about where their culture was coming from. So this idea of splitting into 12 is a connection to the solar year. And then the 13 is more connected to the 13 months or the 13 moons. So that's the feminine cycle. And so the understanding that there are 13 moons a year that's a part that's been sort of buried and lost. And then we focus more on the masculine version of the 12 signs. So when we look at the stars, there's obviously, they weren't just put there, they've always been there. The 13 and the 14 and potentially even more. So they've always been there. It's just that the astrologers and astronomers didn't count them as being part of the zodiac because they wanted to keep it very neat. 360 degrees divided by 12 makes it very, very neat. And so that kind of keeps it in this rhythm. But that's why I say that as we're moving into the Aquarian age, we're now starting to move into irregular rhythms, which are actually more natural rhythms and more feminine cycles. And so there's this bit of transition of changing from 12 to 13. And then I propose that there's a 14th. And so it's we're in this beautiful transition now where we're trying to step up and allow the old structure to release. And of course, there's this time where it will take a bit of adjustment to figure all of this out and for people to get used to it, because we're so used to saying, I'm a Pisces, and all of a sudden you're an Aquarius.
Right.
And then, people's world can be upside down with that of like, it's like learning a whole new language. But this is what the Age of Aquarius is about. It's about breaking the old paradigms, giving honor to them and reverence to what has been as the foundation, and then pushing the boundary into the next realms.
Yeah, when I was doing my natal chart, I know that my ascendant was Sagittarius, which I do have a lot of Sagittarius in me. But then lately, when I discovered the Vedic astrology, it told me that I was more of a Scorpio. So I have a little bit of Scorpio in me as an ascendant. So it's quite interesting to see that. Any thoughts about that?
Yeah, well, that's actually the same as me as well. So
Okay.
that's quite funny. But yeah, I think the thing is that I always share is that the once you have the instruction manual of your natal chart and you get used to that and you get used to how that feels in the year and then what these things are connected to, then that's your beautiful foundation language. And so it's like learning to drive. When we learn to drive in a very sort of practical, very simple way. But a racing driver doesn't drive anything like somebody on the road. And yet you can say, well, who's better? Well, of course, the racing driver, but he's not doing the conventional way. So at a certain level, then we start to realize that we are all of the zodiac. And so then it's not so much about this is my this and this is my that. It's more that you can resonate with all of them. And through, like I was saying, in the star stories, you'll find so much of your journey in signs that you don't have any planets in or any connection to. You're like, well, how do I have that? Because on the next level, it's like you embody all the archetypes. And so we know this in the body, the physical body. So the zodiac is in the physical body. So you have Aries at the head, you have Taurus at the throat, Gemini, the two arms, you have Cancer, which is the breasts, you have Leo, the heart, then you come down into Virgo, the stomach, the womb, Libra down at the kidneys, the hips, Sagittarius, you go down into the thighs. Sorry, Scorpio is the sacral, so the sexual organs. Then you have Capricorn, which is the knee caps. And then you have Aquarius, which is the calves. And then Pisces is the feet, the two fish.
Well, I don't want to be feet.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Because this is where we get this idea of in the Christ story, what does Mary Magdalene do to bless the Christ is that she washes his feet.
Yes.
Because he is the avatar of the Piscean age. And so this idea of the guru touching the guru's feet in India to get the blessings, that's popular because of the age of Pisces, because it's all to do with the feet. But in astrology, what's beautiful is because it's a wheel, is that if you were to bend the body on itself, the feet actually come to the top of the head. So the feet are the soul, the soles of your feet. So the feet is the soul star. So this is where it's really beautiful that when you see that the physical body, the astrology, all of it is such a mesmeric way. And so if you have planets in your, in certain zodiac signs, then you know which body parts to work with.
Very
and this is great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great for healing. It's great to know what to get in contact with, where to look, where you may be storing tension or trauma. And so all of this it's not just about up there, it's all about how is that in here. And that's where my work's led me into going deeply into decoding the DNA and linking all of the star constellations to our DNA.
Wow. This is fascinating. It's like when one of your chakra or two of your chakras are closed, you got to find a way to kind of let it flow, let the energy flow through it. So it's kind of same thing, I assume, right?
Yeah, it gives us our body as that map of the cosmos. And so this is where it's really great to see that we can be in touch with our form that is a mirror of that macrocosm. And so that's what took me to the next stage. After I said about the Deacons and the star stories, the next stage was to then go into the actual body of the amino acids and the DNA codons. And then that's where I've started to find, absolute magic about how the actual chemistry of our body is the genetic code. And I share that when we look out at the stars at night, we are actually looking at the map of our own genetics. That the shapes that I find out there are the same shapes that we find in here. So the constellations are genetic protein building blocks of our own body. And so it's so beautiful that all this time we've been looking at the stars thinking it's out there. And yet they are just a reflection of exactly what is the process happening inside. And so now through the DNA and through technology of understanding and coding the human genetic code, this is where I'm now starting to merge the stars into the stories. And so this is allowing us to activate our own DNA through epigenetics, and also allowing us to heal the mother and father line of our genetics, because a lot of our genes are inherited. Yes. So now we have the pathway to go through our genetic lineage to heal that part and to also bring the gifts back from our lineage. So it's a really beautiful, deep next stage. And that's where I feel that when quantum physics and the DNA code merge together in alignment with the stars, that's the Aquarian age.
Very, very interesting. I'm still learning. There's so much to learn. A lot of information.
Yeah, it's just, but it's step by step. Yeah. And that's why I say that it's layered, and just take it one at a time. And, for me, I can share a story that could express something that's much more powerful in that one story than to learn all about degrees. And of course they work side by side, but if you want to understand astrology but you're like, wow, where do I start with all of this stuff? Listen to the stories, read the stories, and then that will give you a human connection to the map that you're seeing. Because when we're just looking at a piece of paper with numbers on it, it can be very hard for us to connect on a human level. So when we say, oh, there's Saturn and Jupiter having a battle in the stars, and that's this, and that's the Greek myth of the Battle of the Titans, and then all of a sudden now you're like, you're vested into this story, like, well, what happened? And so there's a connection there. So as I say, if we go back to how we would teach kids and children in life, this is the way that we find the most powerful, and these are the most memorable. And then we can start to look at the maps with much more meaning.
I love this. I absolutely love it, because I remember also, and I'm going to look into what you just suggested, but I remember also as a kid, going to my grandmother's in the middle of, like, she lived in the country, and we used to go in the field, middle of the field, pitch black. And then we would bring our blankets and pillows, and we would sit there, lay down and whatever. And we would just gaze up the sky. Like, it was just so amazing. And then every time there was a shooting star, we would make a wish. And my first book, I believe, that I ever received as either a Christmas gift or a birthday gift was an astrology book. So I must have been probably around 7 or 8. Do I remember much of it? No, but I was very fascinated with it. I remember just really, really diving in and reading and just being in awe. Now in my older age, I know that everything is connected. And again, having you, Robert, explaining it, it really will come to place and connect these dots, I'd say, for me, myself, and hopefully for everybody else that's listening. So I really appreciate that.
Oh, that's kind to say. And it is kind of funny that if you think about it, that kind of is the job of astrologers, right? Is that we connect dots, like literally to make the constellations, those dots are stars. And so it's this same weaving. We just make bigger and bigger pictures of all of these stars that are all connected. And then that's, as I say, that's what allowed me to see that the actual star constellations I could see are in our own DNA. And I'm thinking, this is a direct mirror. And so this truth of that us and the cosmos are one, and this cosmic joke that all this time it's been there, all of our DNA is right there that we're looking at. And so this, it brings it into the human being, about the embodiment of all of this, that it's not just a mythology, is that you are the living mythology, and your life is the next mythology, you know. And so like your life, you then get to pass down to your children as the lessons that you've learned. And so then that's like a living mythology. And so then they don't choose those same paths. And so this is how we evolve in our consciousness as humanity. So yeah, the more that we get to share all of this and all of our stories in our natal chart and how they connect, then we are just up leveling the awareness in the field. And yeah, I feel like we're moving forward in leaps and bounds.
I think so too. I think really truly believe that too. What exactly are Decons within each zodiac sign, and how do they deepen our understanding of astrology?
Yeah, so the Deacons are it's such a beautiful science. And this is also what we think about, that astrology isn't just, you know, as we probably know, and people that you're speaking to, it's not just a metaphor thing. It's not just a woo-woo thing. This is a scientific, our most ancient scientific study. And this is how the ancient cultures had to live or die through this, because if there was famine, if there was droughts, if there was floods, like this was a matter of life and death for them. So we've got to remember that this is our oldest science, astrology. So with the Dendera stone, as I say, there are 3 Decons within every zodiac sign. And so in the 12 signs, there's 36 Decons. And then with the 12, then there's 48 total in the astrological wheel. And even just thinking about that, think about how different that would be as 48 different constellations to be working with rather than 12.
Right.
The amount of nuance within that. And of course, even within that there are stars that are particularly more potent. Like there are royal stars, like the Persians revered the 4 royal stars. And so you can go deeper and deeper and deeper into this, but they are 10 degrees each, the Decons. So 3 of those is the 30 degrees. And each of those Decons are constellations. So they connect to constellations. A lot of what's been known in the past is that people have used Decons with the elements. So they've used it as fire signs together, water signs together, earth signs, and it just keeps going around in those elements. Well, that's not really the true understanding of the Decons. The Decons are all of the other constellations. And of course, in the northern hemisphere, the northern or majority on the Dendera stone is all about the northern hemisphere stars. Well, what I've also done is I've now started to map another 36 Decons in the southern hemisphere. So now there are 72 Decons of astrology that we can work with. And so the southern hemisphere hasn't been mapped before. So this is where it's like a pioneering project for me to map this, because of course the southern hemisphere is so important. It's got so many gifts and so many star stories there, and we only know a few of them. And that's where, say, in Australia, the originals, they have completely different star laws that we have no idea about in the northern hemisphere. And so what they did was, in the sort of Renaissance period, a lot of French astronomers, they started to name the southern hemisphere, but they named the constellations after things that were very modern, like an air pump. It's like you'd never get an air pump in normal astrology. So it's really, we need to reclaim and relook at what these star constellations, what shapes they make, what animals are they, and what archetypes are they. So it's a huge project. I'm sure it will take me quite a few years to put it together, but that then is going to give us both hemispheres, and it's like both hemispheres of the brain. The idea in Aquarius is to have this balance of both hemispheres and merge them as one. So yeah, it gives so much nuance. So for example, we'll take Pisces because that's your sign. So in Pisces we have the band, which is the actual band that ties the two fish together. You know, and you've seen the fish, and then on their tails there's this like V-shaped line. And they called that the band. And really what it is, it's like a ribbon, or it's described as like a ribbon or a rope. And what that is that when Pisces are swimming, they're swimming in two different directions at the same time. Right? So we'll have one idea, and at the same time another idea, and then we try and do both, and then at some point the string pulls, and then we're like, I can't go either way.
Yes.
So
I can relate.
Right. So something's got to give. You put all your fish in one basket. You've got to go all in one direction, and then that's what gives you progress. And one is towards the earthly plane, and one is toward divinity. So we always have this balance about the balance between earth and then the spiritual. And so it's a bit of a dance. So the first deacon is the band. So that's this idea of, if you have this in your chart, then this is the story, that your story is meant to be about this journey between two different paths. But when you can find one path that you can put both of your efforts into, wow, it's going to be amazing. And don't forget that the Pisces, they're not fish, they're dolphins. And this is in the Greeks pick this so beautifully, because they speak about that you have Eros and Aphrodite, and that they jumped into the ocean and they turned into two golden dolphins. So it's quite a bit different to just sort of like two fish in the ocean. It's a lot more special than that. The intellectual, the creativity, the playfulness, all of the dolphin traits, it's all there. Then we have Andromeda, which is what my son is connected to. And it's one of my favorite stories. And it's another Greek myth. And of course, we have the Andromedan galaxy. And so Princess Andromeda was the princess of Ethiopia, of Africa, which is really interesting to think that. But Africa, or Ethiopia, is this royal lineage. And it's said that even the Ark of the Covenant is supposedly meant to be stored in Ethiopia today, and that people guard it, which is really interesting. So it has special lands, and the Nile actually starts there in Africa.
Right. And
when we look on the map, we think that it runs sort of down, but it actually runs up. When you look from Africa and go upwards, that's the way the river flows. So this idea of that she is the princess of the heavens, Andromeda. And she, in the story, she's set forth as a sacrifice, which is very much like a Christ story, but in a feminine way, where she's chained to a rock, which we'll get into in the next deacon. And she's sacrificed to this sea monster. And then in the Greek story, because it's very patriarchal, we have the hero that saves the damsel, and then he slays the dragon, right? It's a very typical motif. Well, when I went into this and saw that this female, she's actually like a Christ figure. So in this, she can actually break her own chains because she's chained to this rock. And from a feminine view, she wouldn't slay the dragon. She would befriend the dragon. She would want to ride the dragon. So all of a sudden now there's a completely different narrative to what we see in the stars. And so this then becomes this empowerment process. And that's what I'm writing in my book and my sharings, is that when we look at a flower, we'll see it in two different ways. And so if we look at it from this hero to save the damsel, or the fact that the feminine can find her inner empowerment and break her own chains. So this is the new narrative that we can start to balance the hemispheres. And then the final deacon is the tyrannical father. And this is the king of the heavens. But he's the king of the heavens, but he kind of rules it in a tyrannical way. And it was him that gave up his daughter. He sacrificed his own daughter so that he could keep his kingdom the way it was. So this is all connected to the father energy, the father wounds that we may experience. And so if you have this in your chart, for example, then you're probably going to have this father lineage wounding, or you're going to experience something very tyrannical from the masculine that is part of your path. So that's why I say, like, it really gives you this idea of, yeah, it's not great to experience it, but at least I know that I'm meant to. And so then what do we do to transform that, to work with that? And so this is how we change the story of, why is the masculine wounded in the first place? Why did the masculine become tyrannical? He wasn't born that way. So this is the deeper parts of understanding our star story. And so that's the Piscean Deacons, which is, if you think about it, so different to, we think about, Pisces, creative, playful, dreamy, this, that, yeah. Well, we've got this sacrificial daughter sacrificed by our own tyrannical father. And then we're bound by this unseen rope, which doesn't allow us to move in two different directions. We have to choose a path. And so that's so much more nuanced, and it gives you an insight into that. And that's only part of the picture.
Wow, I did not know. But this is very, very interesting. I mean, I knew that Pisces would swim in completely two different directions. Like you said, one minute you hear and the next minute you hear, and it's like chaos in a way. But it's a very beautifully said. I like that. Just got to focus on one direction and then go from there.
Yeah, it's always been the same in my life when I've put, because if you think about it, you're separating your energies as well. Yeah. And sometimes we need to do that because we have to have one foot in this world, one foot in the other world, to sort of bring the wisdom and the codes into reality. That's part of the Piscean work, is to move into those dream worlds, the spiritual worlds, because we have a natural affinity to contact that. Right. It's just part of our makeup. But then what really works is when you pull all of that into the body and then flow in one direction, and then it's just like the speed, it's like going full speed as a dolphin. It is just amazing what can be created and grounded. And that's really what happened with me with the book. So I never wrote a book before. I was really never a big writer. I probably would write some, poetic type paragraphs maybe. But this was huge. And so in 9 months, this book is like 600 pages. It's 250,000 words. And it's all done in 9 months. And that's what I mean about swimming in one direction. And then I put it out into the world, and then it became a #1 bestseller in nine countries.
Wow. So where can people buy this book?
Yes, you can buy it you can find it on Amazon. Just type in The Lost Octave by Robert James Comber, and you'll find it in there. And what I did was I created new graphics as well for each of the deacons. And so I put it in the book because I wanted people to use it as an oracle as well. So with the I Ching, the connection to the I Ching, in that they would use the I Ching as this way of divination, as an oracle, to answer questions that you may have issues with. So this concept of using like a card deck and this oracle, I decided to put the card deck in the book as the Deacons. So you can literally hold the book and say, what do I need to know? Or can you tell me about this? And open the book.
And it's there.
And what you land on gives you the story or the insight into what you need at the time. So it was a really beautiful way to weave in like a mystical side, to have it like a living book of answers that you could go to and say, okay, I'm having trouble with this. Tell me a story that will help me.
Understand.
And then, and then it's there. So it's a fun way to do it. And if you're just interested in the stories, then I always say just start with that. If you're interested in all of the technical degrees, everything is in there. All of the degrees, all of the geometries. You can really go left brain as well if you wish to. So it's there for everybody.
What is the I Ching?
Yeah, so the I Ching is the ancient Chinese book of divination, which they call the Book of Changes. Okay. And it's based on the yin yang, and it's based on what they call these hexagrams. And so there are 64 hexagrams in the original I Ching. And what was beautiful is that this system called human design, the founder Ra, he aligned astrology to the I Ching. So if you imagine, he put two wheels next to each other. So then each of these gates are connected to the Zodiac. And then what the lost octave is, the whole basis of the title of the book, is I found there was a hidden 8 extra parts to that I Ching. So when I added into the extra lost octave there, then it made this sacred number 72. Okay. And this 72 number was the revelation that it moves everything into unity. The ancient Hebrews used the 72 divine names of God, the 72 angels. In Latin, there's the 72 names of God there. In the mathematics, it's all 720 is a tetrahedron. We move 1 degree every 72 years. The average heartbeat is 72 beats per minute. We are 72% water. It's like, and when we move that into next octave, we have double that is the 144, which is the famous 144,000. Yeah. Then as we move up the next octaves, we hit the 216, which is the measurement of the moon. Then we move up another octave, we have 432, which is the connection to the earth. And then the next octave up is the 864, which is the connection to the sun. So this number in music, in octaves, it is like a self-replicating holographic fractal. So as soon as I stumbled across this and I could link ancient Hebrew with ancient Chinese mysticism, with astrology, with the quantum field, with the planets, with the DNA, it's like, wow, it was like a bingo number that just creates this unity. And so that was my exploration through the book, was saying I found this, and then I investigated it, and then I wove in all of the beautiful star stories. And so it's a journey. The book is I call it the initiation of ether. Okay. In many people, in shamanic traditions, as you mentioned that you started in that way, you know, we do the ceremony of fire and initiations of fire and water, but there has seldom been an initiation for ether. So this was the perfect moment, because it's about the stars, that it's this journey that as you read the book, you are actually activating all of this within you just by reading it. So it's planned in a way that allows it to, it's a transmission. It's not sort of a book that's a factual thing. It's got facts in it, but it's woven into a way in which that it brings those facts alive in you. And so as you're reading it, you're like, wow, this is my life. This is how I've been feeling. I wondered why I felt like this. And so it's like speaking to you. So that's the way I wanted it to be, a more heart-centered book, because it's about the divine feminine, and I received it through the Venus energy on Lionsgate. And so, yeah, that's kind of been the journey of that book.
I have to get my hands on that book for sure.
Oh, you'll love it.
Yeah.
For a Piscean, you'll be in heaven with that book.
Yeah, yeah. I always like to dip my toes into new findings, and again, like you said, expanding the consciousness, expanding your mind to things that, it will point you in the way and in the right direction, gives you a little bit more of understanding. So yeah, looking forward to have a read as well. So
Yeah. And so the Lionsgate became this beautiful portal for me.
yeah.
Of On the Lionsgate 2023 was when I received this information. I say received because it's, however you want to experience it, it's just your own being. It's just coming from within or within the field. It's really the same one thing. So it was like a revelation. And then that was that whole 9-month journey. And then the Lionsgate of the 2024, this new second part 2 transmission came through, which was about how the DNA is connected to the stars. And so now that is what I'm sharing in my first online course, is how to now understand how the DNA works with the stars. And so that's really a beautiful breakthrough in astrology of connecting it into the very DNA codes. And this isn't sort of just a, how can I say, like this is a very scientific thing. So all of I decoded the entire maternal DNA and linked it into the star constellations. Wow. And this is, you could give this to a geneticist and they would be able to understand it exactly. Wow. So it's the science of the DNA linked to the stars. And so again, this idea of spiritual and the artistic, or the spiritual, the mythical and the scientific, the quantum. And just recently, only a couple of weeks ago, quantum science had just brought out this new finding. And it was so perfect to this story that I found in the stars. And when I linked it in, so now it's like understanding the stars in our DNA on the quantum level. So it really is alive, in the moment, week by week, unfolding. And it's so exciting to be on the very precipice of the breaking through into the new energies of this.
Yeah, like you and we spoke a little bit earlier, and there's definitely a shift happening on this planet, and I am absolutely grateful to be here right now in this time of the year, time of this being that is absolutely amazing to witness this. So yeah. What is the story of Anunnaki, and how does it tie into broader cosmic narrative?
Great question. I laugh because I literally had this amazing insight, maybe a few weeks ago, that I shared in my group. And it was all to do with the bees.
Okay.
And so when we go back to ancient Egypt and other cultures, the bees were so revered. The bee priestesses, this understanding of the nectar, the honey, and that was all a metaphor as well for the interior secretions within the body. So the pineal gland that secretes like the honey, and the pituitary that secretes the milk. And so the land of milk and honey is within your own body. Very sort of biblical narrative. So as I was moving into the bees, and there's a beehive in the stars, by the way. There's a beehive constellation.
Oh, I did not.
Which is really, yeah. And this is what I say, like, it's so amazing when you see it. You're like, wow, it's like a beehive right there, and it's so perfectly placed. And so moving into this understanding of the beehive, I was going into the transmission of why were bees so revered. And, and I think it was Einstein that said something like, if the bees died, we would have 4 years and then humanity would cease. Yeah. And so they seemed to understand this way back then, that there was this connection to the bees and the honey. And of course, there's lots of connections to bees making honey that was also psychedelic as well. So it was also revered as this sort of sacred substance because it would move them into altered states. So weirdly enough, to answer your question, this brought me to the Anunnaki imagery. And when you look at the imagery of them, we often know about the pine cone, that they're holding this pine cone in the hand like this. And then they're holding this handbag, what looks like a sort of a basket underneath. Well, what I found out is that beekeepers would store or carry pollen in these handbags. And so this connection to the bees and connection to the Anunnaki is that a lot of the pharaohs in Egypt were also known as the beekeepers. And it wasn't necessarily about actually tending to bees. It was being the king, or the king of the hive, and that's like where you get the queen of the hive, and that everybody's working in a community. Yeah. And it's all metaphor for the interior processes within us. And so then I figured out that, again, we have, and that's how it often happens, that we often read something, or it's something that's outside of us, that these beings, these space gods came down, changed our DNA, and then they harbored the gold, and then they went to some other planet. Well, if that's true, then that's one way. For me, I've found through the genetics and through the star law and through the ancient symbolism of the bees that it's all about the beekeeper, and that's all about the process of the secretions within our own body. And so the Anunnaki are not physical beings, they are the actual DNA code within us. And when we think about that they were mining for gold, well, that's what honey was called. It was called the nectar of the gods. It was called liquid gold. So, and they're holding the pineal gland, which is what the honey is secreting. So we often personify everything that's happening internally, or we personify the external, like the stars. And that's where we use, like Leo, this lion, right? It's like, it's out there. But we all have the lion's heart. And so this is why we resonate with these stories, and we see it in popular films when there's, like, say, Narnia, the film of Narnia with the great lion. Yes. And so everybody, he gets killed and everyone's like, oh, can't kill the lion. And so why does everybody resonate with that? Because that is inside. And so all of what I'm sharing is more about seeing that the actual genetic code, the story of the Anunnaki, is actually the story of our own evolution within our genetic code that we've projected as an external being, but actually it's a personification of the internal processes. And this is why it's so important to switch on through epigenetics these codes within us, because we don't even know what we are capable of. We have no idea yet. And science is moving as fast as it can, but we really don't have a clue how powerful we can actually be. And so this is where, if we focus on interior activation of all of this and understanding all of this, then the things that we're going to be able to do and know, and I think AI is a sort of a direct reflection of where we're moving, of what the capabilities that we're seeing externally, when really we are the most important technology, the most advanced technology, on the earth, if not in the universe that we know of. And so it's like, wow, we just need to look more closely at our own genetic code and see how that is connected to the stars. And yeah, it's going to be breakthroughs.
What you thought about where we got lost? Where was the period where we forgot about being connected with the stars?
Yeah, well, that's actually pretty simple to answer through astrology. So when we move back in that precessional cycle, so we could say that we're either in the Age of Aquarius or Age of Pisces now. When we move back one, we're in the age of Aries, and that was Aries was where we had the Abrahamic religions, and so these were the sort of those type of stories, like we would have the original parts of the Bible, let's say, and that was also connected to the era of Moses. So all of those teachings were from the Aries period. Then when we move back into Taurus, we have what we know now as ancient Egypt, what we would think is ancient Egypt. Then before that, we have the Gemini period. And so that would be what we have been told is the Adam and Eve sort of period of life, the two Gemini twins, the lovers. Mm-hmm. And then we also have further back, we have the Cancer, and Cancer is where we get the story of Noah's Ark, of the Great Flood. And of course, we see this in the Sumerian myths and many other myths about this Great Flood. Well, one sign back from that, we get to Leo. And so that is the alignment of the Sphinx. In the age of Leo is where the sun rose in exact alignment of the Sphinx. That really, truly 13,000 years ago, that would what we would call as the end of Atlantis. Okay. So as we move from Leo, the sun, into Cancer, which is ruled by the moon, the water, right there on that line, the Earth went through a complete pole flip. So the magnetic poles of the Earth flipped. And then what that does is that shifts all the water, and then that floods all the plains. Now, why we forget, this is really interesting to know. In order for a pole flip to happen, the magnetic field of the Earth has to weaken. Right? So the stronger it is, the more aligned it's going to be. When it starts to move and wobble, the magnetic field is weaker. Well, when it gets so weak, the pole flip happens and then it gets stronger again. Well, when we lose the magnetic field, the magnetics within inside us, it wipes our memory. So we know this because when people come back from supposed space or away from the Earth's center, as they come out of that magnetic field of the Earth, then they've had to actually create magnets on the astronauts to keep their electromagnetic field strengthened. Otherwise, what they found was, as they came back to Earth, their memory was being wiped. So this is what happened. This is why we had this cataclysm. We have no idea how it happened and what happened. And we have these vague memories of Atlantis and Lemuria. And this great forgetting was all because of this pole shift. And so 13,000 years on, we are now exactly half the other side of that in Aquarius, or at the very beginnings of Aquarius, and we are due to have another pole shift.
Yeah, I read that somewhere, that there is already shifts happening.
Yeah, so the magnetic north moves quite a bit over many years. And so this pole shift, we are expected to have one. And so what I shared is that if we can do our own internal pole shift within, meaning that if we are normally more masculine, is to move and get in contact with the feminine. If we're normally in our feminine, we need to connect with the masculine. We need to balance the polarities within us. And that's really this Age of Aquarius is about the reconciliation of this merging as a spectrum. Rather than just yin and yang, it's like, well, it's a rainbow of connectedness. So if we can do that within, then I feel that the consciousness will raise enough that when the Earth does have its pole shift, that our memories won't be wiped and that we will actually stay away from the cataclysms of the Earth. Because it's all a direct reflection, is that the Earth and humanity is all a rhythmical dance. And so if we manage to raise our own energetic consciousness, then we then get to affect the planet as well. And so then we can actually stop this potential cataclysm from happening, or from happening in a way in which it would wipe off humanity again and make us go for a whole new reset. So this is the importance of doing this inner work, and to understand the astrology and the earth and the rhythms. And yeah, it's just one great big beautiful symphony that we just need to attune to.
The more we spread this information, I think the more people can align and understand, and prevent from something like this happen again down the road. Maybe not in our lifetime, but in the futures to come.
Yeah.
So we are in Age of Aquarius right now, beginning of it, you said?
We've actually, okay, I can share a bit of a secret if you want on here, is that we've actually been in the Age of Aquarius for probably about 200 to maybe 300 years already.
Okay.
So how can I say that? Well, what constitutes the age of Pisces, the age of Aquarius, is the question. And so again, we go back to this understanding of the 12 signs or the 36 Decons, which are also constellations. So Pisces is huge. Remember I was saying it's about 40 degrees in the sky. And one is going up and one is going across. Well, the one that's going across is the one that's going towards Aquarius. So it's almost the length of Pisces, right? It's almost 40 degrees. So yes, when the eastern horizon, when the sun comes up on the eastern horizon, of course it's in the fish of Pisces, but this is where it's different. If we just follow that line all the way up, then what we find is we find the Deacon of Aquarius, and that Deacon is Pegasus. And so when you look at that, you'll actually see Pegasus upside down, interestingly enough. And so the wings of Pegasus overlap Pisces.
Yeah.
So the same straight line, just because it doesn't move into the 12 signs, if we use the full constellational zodiac, then we'll actually see that we are simultaneously in this blending period between Pisces and Aquarius. And so we have been in the Deacon of Aquarius for 200, if not 300 years already. And when we think back to 300 years, which is quite a small number in the grand scheme of things, think about the 1700s to to AI. Like that is a beyond the quantum leap. Even 100 years ago, the 1920s to now is like it's so accelerated. So we are at the end of Pisces, but we are also in the Aquarius. Deacon of Pegasus, which is the Aquarian Deacon.
So what does this mean, or what does this symbolize for humanity right now?
I think it's a bit of a choice point of there is a narrative, there is a culture, there is a story, there are laws and rules, and there are all of the histories that we've known or we've been brought up to see. And that's one experience of reality. And most people live their lives to that. They live in that narrative. And very rarely do they question that narrative, or do they move outside the boundaries of that narrative. And it's kind of, a lot of it is locked in the patriarchal identification. And I'm not having anything bad at it, because we need that masculine structure also. And we need the masculine energy needs purpose. It wants to build, it wants to create, it wants to, all of the things that we have, all the modern developments that we have that have been built through this is amazing. However, through that is that story of the tyrannical king. is that, yes, we have this kingdom. Yes, we have abundance. Yes, we are now creating beautiful things. But somewhere along the line, that masculine tyrannical part of the masculine that was activated in Aries, there's something missing in there that's not coming into the masculine of the heart. It's still ruling from the head. The crown is still being worn on the head rather than worn on the heart. And so that's where now the feminine balance needs to come and show the way, to show the softness, but also the creativity, the natural cycles of the feminine, to tune into Mother Earth more deeply. And so this is where the masculine is all about the building, and yet perhaps not questioning the resources that it's using to build the building. Right? So the feminine is there to remind and say, well, yeah, we don't want to take too much. We need to allow it to grow back. We need to replace what we use. We need to, so it's a long-term view. It's a more panoramic view. And so
like
you could say
have
that
to dance together. You have to learn how to dance together.
Yeah. And so this is what Aquarius is bringing us, this beautiful shift, and this pole flip is the pole flip into the divine feminine leadership. And it doesn't mean that the masculine is discarded.
Right.
It just means that it's a co-creation in the right balance. And this is where you could say Andromeda shows her tyrannical father that instead of sacrificing her, that she actually is the one that can help him rule his kingdom in the best way. So he still has his kingdom, but she's the one that makes it beautiful. She's the one that makes it abundant and flourishing and nurturing for everyone. It's like it's the oasis of Eden back. So this is where this is this time. So the Aquarian part of the Piscean, this dual, people speak about, there feels like there's two timelines of Earth, right? Like this 5D Earth and the 3D Earth. Well, that is because we are being co-ruled at the same time by Aquarius, and Pisces are co-ruling us. And if we think about it, Pegasus is the white-winged mythical horse, which essentially is a unicorn. So it's like this, a unicorn is the most pure being, right? It's the prize in a way of the whole entire zodiac. Right. So all of the magic, all of this purity is weaving into our age at this time as it's being birthed. And so if we can tune into, yes, we have all of the negative stuff, the stuff that's truly happening in the world that's terrible and terrifying and horrendous, and all of the struggles, and it's not a fun roller coaster as well on that side. But this is where it's saying call in to find the magic in life, find magic in your life. And this is where the stars and the stories, because that is also there. At the same time, there is also this, sort of what's happening in the world. There is also, on top of that, there is also this amazing magic. And so that's what's happening at the moment, this parallel timeline that is flowing through. And if you can keep yourself in that vibration of the magic, of cultivating magic within you, then it's going to help you through the challenges and the birth pains that we're going through as we are blending into this new age. And that's why a lot of the children that are coming in have completely different mindsets, because they're attuning to that unicorn mindset. And the unicorn has the horn from the third eye. Yeah. So it's like having they come in with an activated third eye from birth, thinking, why are you doing this world like this? This doesn't even make sense to run the world like this. And so obviously they have to learn to mature as to how the world works, but then also we can learn from seeing what we've seen before, but in a new way.
Absolutely. I see this in my own children, and it's exciting because, again, I believe in the change, and I think these children are here for a reason. Either you call them the crystal children, the rainbow children, whatever it is. And I think that's what it's happening right now. So it is amazing to see. Yeah.
And I think we're by the sounds of it, there'll be the new ones will be the unicorn children. I think that's because we're underneath that beautiful thing. And that's what I say, if you want to learn about the age of Aquarius, like what is the age we're in with an Aquarian energy, read about the story of Pegasus. And when you read that story, you'll understand the symbol of what it means, and then you'll see how that applies to the world. And so, as I say, this idea of the band of the two fish at the moment in our end of Pisces, we're in that band. So this two timelines are happening at the same time. And at some point, that band is going to be cut and released. And I even mentioned that in the last solar eclipse, it's very interesting that the solar eclipse happened through the band, and it looked like a pair of scissors that cut the band. Wow. So now the fish are able to swim and in their own direction. So even that was quite a remarkable thing to see. But again, if we can focus all our efforts into the highest timeline, swim in the same direction, if everybody can move in the same current, they can do it in their own way, but just steer it in that way, then wow, we are going to quantum leap beyond means.
Well, let's just hope that this is what's going to happen, because it is pretty chaotic up there. So yeah, but
yeah, and it's definitely meant to be.
Yes, and it has to go through that. We have to go through this.
Yeah, it's definitely meant to be. And that's why I say, if you think about how difficult it may be, that how difficult it is to think that if you were born a Pisces, that now in sidereal you're now an Aquarian, how difficult that may be for you in your life, thinking, well, I don't know, does that resonate with me? I'm not. Think about all of that shift that you would have your own self, and then think about it on a cosmic level with a global group of people that maybe most of them are unfamiliar with any of these terminologies. So it's a whole new identity, a whole new different stream of things to understand about yourself. And so that's the reality of, if we can move through it with ease and grace through the Piscean waters, then it makes it softer. And that's that feminine again of move with softness, move with kindness, move with more compassion and understanding. And I would say the biggest gift of the book that when I was writing was I got to understand other people's journey. And when I could see that some people's journey is tough, like everybody has it tough in some form, but some people's natal charts are tough. They were born to go through the baptism of fire. And when I see that, and I'm thinking, you see people that are having outbursts, or they're crying, or their life's collapsing, and maybe there's judgments about that, or you're thinking, well, why are they always in this hole? Why are they always having to rebirth themselves? Can't they just pull themselves together? What's going? It's like, no, that is their life purpose. Like they are living out their purpose. It's about the process for them. It's not about just being, it's about having to keep moving through the layers. And so this is where it gives so much compassion to when you see other people that they're meant to be going through certain things. And so that's why I say, when we're kind to each other and saying, wow, heart to your design and your whole map it's a tough route to get to the top of that mountain. And it makes you more grateful for yours. And you're like, wow, I thought mine was tough. And then I saw yours and I'm like, wow, I'm pretty grateful actually for, where mine is right now. And so, yeah, it's this idea of it's not just about your natal chart. When you read the stories, you're reading the whole of humanity.
Right.
And then when you understand those stories, everybody you meet, you're thinking, wow, maybe you've got one of those maps that you came in, that you were born with. And you know what, like, wow, I truly have compassion for you. And I can, it's a beautiful way to see the world.
Yes, we all have to learn how to dance and go through this life without judgment, without pointing fingers. Like you said, we all have stories, we all have tough times and good times, and everybody has a different purpose on this earth. You just have to find that purpose. So
Yeah.
this will bring me to, in your own view, what is purpose of life?
That's many tiered, I would say, many layered, but I would say the purpose of life is what you feel it should be. And I don't mean that on a personality level. I mean that on the deepest soul level. If you truly ask that question within of what is the purpose of all of this, it's going to come back with, well, whatever you want to make it, but not through the mind, but through your whole heart and being. And that's why I say there's a beautiful flexibility that I don't think that's been shared a lot, is that it's not that you know this, that you can manifest anything that you want, or it's that you get to be part of this beautiful co-creation. And if you do it through the heart, then it can be whatever your heart leads you to be. And sometimes that's so beautiful to live like that, because I didn't know this book was going to happen. I didn't know I was going to go into this and share these messages, and I had no idea. All I knew was that, I was connecting to my highest spiritual heart as I can feel it at this time. And I was just listening to that and allowing that to guide my path. And then, within 2 years, it has been the most miraculous. It's been really full on. Like, it's been a lot of sacrifice, a lot of work, relentless hours, all of this stuff. But it's like, wow, I am doing something that I can wholeheartedly say that it's my favorite thing to do. It's how I live. It is who I work to be, and how I wish to express and share in the world. It is my soul's work. And so to really share that is so, and discover that, is so beautiful. So it's whatever you feel it's meant to be.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. What daily practices or ritual help you stay attuned to cosmic rhythms and your inner truth?
Yeah, beautiful. I would say when I began, it was very much about a systematic process. And I think that's a beautiful way that we're often taught in different modalities and different teachings. And that's the way it should be, that if you want to be good at something, there are practices and you build on those, and then more and more and more. But remember, I was saying about the racing driver. To get from a normal driver to a racing driver, at some point you've got to let go of everything that you've ever known to become the racing driver. And all of those foundations can inform that racing driver. They're ingrained, they're like second nature now. But in a way, you need to go the complete opposite of what you learn. It's like you have to unlearn the original things, and then so you can learn the very current things that are happening in your attunement. So for me, I do very simple things. I say I'm on all the time. There is no activating to reach, to find, to connect with. It's just the field that's here. But of course, if I was to say that to myself 8 years ago, I would be like, I have no idea what you're speaking about. So there needs to be this process. But if anything, I would say there's an encouragement to also dare to allow the higher self guidance to be in tune with that and receive directly from that. And so then for me, like, I do beautiful, very simple things. Like, I'll use incense and candles, and and I'll create a beautiful sacred space before I'm about to write and take a transmission or create something. And I have music and frequencies and all of these things. And of course, my life, in terms of what I eat and what I do, and just everything in my life is attuned so that I am the highest sort of transmitter or receiver of the transmission, so that I can, when I'm writing, it's not me writing, it's the transmission. So it's coming through as pure as it can. And even through that, I'll find my own limitations of words that I'm sharing, or phrases, or ways in which I'm creating a story. And I'm thinking, wow, I need to go into something within myself to change so I can bring it through in a much higher way. And so that's what I love to do. It's like a forever alchemical process that I'm doing. As I'm creating, I'm healing. As I'm creating, I'm alchemizing. So it's not like I'm going into search myself of what's holding me back. What do I need to do? What do I need to clear? It's not that. As I create, you naturally come across a boundary. And you're like, wow, I wouldn't have never seen this. And so now it's this excitement of like, okay, well, that's there. I need to move through this. So what do I need to do? So you may close your eyes, go into meditation, whatever it may be. And so it's a beautiful way to do it, because it's not about trying to heal what you think that needs to be fixed. It's just that I want to be able to be my full creative self. And then there are these invisible boundaries that I never saw. And so when you meet them, it's like a beautiful moment. And you're like, wow, I get to pause. I just get to breathe here and like, okay, I've reached my capacity. And then what do I need to do? What's the next stage? How do I expand more? And it's just this, it's a complete sort of flip reversal of something that you look forward to, even if it's painful, even if it's tough, because you know that on the other side of that is a whole nother spectrum for you to enjoy and see and taste and share and invite people into that portal. And it's, yeah, for a creative person, I started to think about, if I want to see a change in the world, then of course you have to be that change. But well, what else can you do? Well, I can create the change. So I then put out things that I share with others in a creative way, that then when they read that or they see that image or picture, on a deeper level, it's touching them in ways that they don't know. And then all of a sudden they feel different, or they may speak the same words in the way that I'm sharing it, which is a more expansive or a pure way. And so then all of a sudden, then people speak differently to each other. They're kinder, more open. They feel that they're empowered. So as I'm creating, I'm just gifting out these golden nuggets. And just if they catch and somebody says, wow, I'll take that, or that will then inspire them to do something, hopefully. And then I get inspired by other people's creations. And then so it becomes a creative universe. Rather than this idea of I'm searching myself to find what's wrong. It's like, well, focus on what is your love, what's your passion, what's your strengths, what do you want to do, how do you want to see the world? And then naturally you'll be doing the healing. And I feel for me, it's like, it's so much more instantaneous. As soon as I meet a boundary, I get to have this beautiful rest of all this creativity and all the ideas, and just come back in, breathe. And sometimes it's just that. It was a reminder, say, like, just take a breath, breathe. And, if the idea isn't coming straight away, leave it, just let it go. And then it's all of a sudden, now it's,
don't be attached to it. Right.
Yeah, it's like you get detachment, surrender practice, you get pausing. And all of that is in the process of the creation. Rather than thinking I need to let go of all the things I've got in my emotional field. Why do that? Why not just create until you find that tension of wanting to create, and then you learn to let go, because then you can create again. So that's my process. And it's taken obviously a lot of dedication and cultivation to do that. But now I've found it's the most natural thing. We are born here to create and to share and to connect. And that's what I feel is the new way.
It's beautiful. I always say, be open-minded. keep your mind open, your heart open, and let everything in, and you'll see it will come to you. It's just don't close the door.
Yeah, beautiful.
What final message would you like to share with the listeners about their place in the stars and the story of their soul?
Well, I'm hoping that from what we've shared already, it's becoming more and more a beautiful picture of invitation to say that there is no difference between you and all else, that all else is you. And I know that is an age old adage that people say, that we are all one and that we are the within and the without. Mm-hmm. But truly, we are the very body that you are in is a replication of the entire universe. And it's kind of mind blowing just to step out for a little bit and look at those stars and realize that you are on this planet moving at thousands of miles per hour with this huge ball of fire that is giving us life energy, that's growing all the plants. And we're moving through this endless depth of infinite space, this black void of the mother's womb, the cosmic mother womb, that's giving birth to stars every single day. And there's more stars that we can count. And yet all those stars have beautiful stories, and those stories are our human journey, and our human journey leads us into the spiritual journey, which takes us back to the stars. And so this beautiful mirroring it really is a true thing. This is not a myth. And so to live your life as the new mythology, to, as you say, open the heart and let it all through. Realize you are the field and you are the one within the field. And yeah, we are treading brand new ground, and we get to be the pioneers of this. And so I always make this an invitation, that this is an invitation to be one of the rare beings on the earth, to pioneer, to make these changes, to create, to heal. And we can all do that in our own way. It doesn't need to be art. It doesn't need to be music. It can just be the way in which you arrange your flowers in your home. It can be the way you create the beautiful spaces in your home, or the way you care for people. It's all creativity. And so put your own flair, your own creativity, your own juice into it. Make it your own. Make everything you do your own with your full heart, and then watch what happens. Because what happens around you, what happens to the people around you, what happens to the world at large, if everybody is doing this, then it's going to become very obvious that we are so connected. Why would we want to hurt or harm each other or the earth? And so that's what I would say.
It's like a magnetic pull towards another person. And at the end of the day, just be kind. Be kind. Robert, I will post all your information at the end of the show notes. So anybody who absolutely enjoy this conversation with you, have all the access to your work, your book, and everything. From the bottom of my heart, I really appreciate you coming on here and having this discussion with me. Absolutely, absolutely amazing.
Oh, amazing. Thank you, Alexandra. So good to be with you, and so great questions as well. I love to, we can use the Zodiac as the opener, but I love to go into the deep oceans. And I think, as we're both Piscean, I think that was a beautiful deep dive. So thank you so much for having me on. Such a pleasure to be with you. And I look forward to this being shared out.
Yeah. And hopefully down the road, we'll have another conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.